All right, let's dive right into the engine room of the European Union's single market. In this explainer, we're going to break down two fundamental rights that honestly are the magic that lets businesses and professionals work across 27 countries like it's all one big place. So have you ever really stopped to think about it? How does the EU actually pull this off? How do you turn 27 different countries with different languages and laws into one giant seamless marketplace? The answer is all about a set of core ideas called the four freedoms. And today, we're going to focus on two of them, the two that are absolutely crucial for any business that wants to grow.
To make this super practical and easy to understand, let's follow the journey of a fictional entrepreneur named Lena. She's a brilliant software developer from Denmark. Her company's pretty cool. It specializes in custom software for those incredibly complex Lego designs. And now, she's ready to expand. She's got her eye on huge opportunities in Germany and France, but where does she even begin?
Okay, so for someone like Lena, the EU single market isn't just one big open road. It actually offers her two very distinct legal pathways to expand her business. And the choice she makes is going to depend entirely on what her goals are. So, she has a choice to make. On one hand, she could dip her toes in the water, right? Maybe take on a specific one-off consulting project that'll last 6 months for a big toy company in Berlin. Or she could go all in and set up a brand new, permanent office for her company in Paris to really tackle the French market for the long haul. These two choices, they perfectly illustrate the two freedoms we're about to unpack. Let's take that first path, the one that's perfect for that short-term Berlin project. This is all about what we call the freedom to provide services. What this really means is that Lena and her team can just, pack their bags, go from Denmark to Germany, do their work for their client, get paid, and then head home. All of that without the headache of registering a whole new company or setting up a German office. The key word here, and you're going to hear it a lot, is temporary. So what actually qualifies as a service in the eyes of the EU? Well, you've got to tick a few boxes. First, it has to cross a border, obviously, like Lena going from Denmark to Germany. Second, you have to get paid for it. Third, it applies to self-employed activities, just like Lena's business. And finally, you need a provider, that's Lena, and a recipient, who is her client in Berlin. But what if Lena's thinking bigger? What if she's got those long-term ambitions for Paris? Well, this brings us to path number 2, which is built on our second big idea, the freedom of establishment. So, if the freedom of services was all about being temporary, establishment is the complete opposite. It's all about permanence. It's the right to actually set up shop in another EU country and operate there on a stable and continuous basis. What this means in plain English is that this right lets Lena create a real, physical, and legal presence in France. We're talking renting an office, hiring local staff, and plugging directly into the French market, competing on a totally level playing field with any French company. And this, right here, sums it all up perfectly. Services, that's about temporary cross-border work. Establishment, that's about creating a stable, long-term base. Honestly, just think of it as the difference between going on a business trip versus packing up your bags and moving to a new city. Now, this all sounds a little too good to be true for Lena, right? A complete free-for-all? Well, not exactly. Member states can still have their own rules and regulations, and this is where things get a little more complicated. So does this mean that France or Germany just have to roll out the red carpet and get out of the way? Can they impose any of their national laws on Lena's business? The answer is yes, but, and it's a big but, they can only do it under very specific and very limited circumstances. Okay, so a country can't just make up a rule to block a foreign business. If a rule specifically targets foreigners, it's pretty much a no-go unless it's for a huge reason, like public health or national security. Now, if a rule applies to everyone, both local and foreign companies, but still makes things difficult, it has to be justified by a strong public interest. Think consumer protection or environmental standards. The absolute key here is that a country can't use these rules just to protect its own businesses from competition, and the rule has to be reasonable. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. We've seen how these two paths could work for Lena, but why does this stuff matter so much for the EU as a whole? What's the big picture here? To put it simply, these rights aren't just a nice-to-have feature. They are the literal engine that powers the entire single market. They are absolutely fundamental to how the whole European project works. And the impact is enormous. When businesses can compete freely across borders, you get more innovation and often better prices. For the 450 million of us who are consumers, it means way more choice.
For entrepreneurs like Lena, it opens up an entire continent of opportunity. And in the end, it weaves all the different economies of the member states closer and closer together.
So there you have it. From short-term projects to setting down permanent roots, these two freedoms give businesses incredible flexibility to grow across Europe. But I want to leave you with one final thought. In an age where Lena could provide all her software services to that client in Berlin without ever leaving her office in Copenhagen, what does crossing a border even mean anymore? How will these decades-old legal ideas adapt to our digital-first world? That's the huge question the EU is trying to figure out right now.